Welcome to the Marketing Impact Podcast with your host, Mike Wood from Legalmorning.com, providing tips and the latest trends in the world of marketing.
And welcome to the Marketing Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Wood from Legalmorning.com. Today we're going to be speaking with David Gianetto, the author of Big Social Mobile. Now, David has quite a background for me. One thing that stood out to me, a former professor at Rutgers in the MBA program, but he's also authored 3 books, including the one we're going to discuss a little bit about today, Big Social Mobile, and how you can tie all 3 of those into basically take advantage of all 3 technologies. He's considered a thought leader, has been named so by the American Management Association, Business Finance Magazine, and Consumer Goods Technology Magazine. He also writes for the AMA and the Huffington Post, and a columnist for Strictly Marketing Magazine. He also works as a senior vice president of Astia International and has worked with some of the nation's leading brands and companies. How are you doing today, David?
Hi, Mike. Great to be with you. I'm good.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about Big Social Mobile. Now I've read through the book, and to me, when I first read the title, I'm thinking, okay, we're talking about big data, we're talking about social media, and we're talking about mobile technology. And I'm thinking, what is this guy thinking? How do these 3 interact? How do they come together? I mean, we're talking about three different worlds here.
Well, it's easy to feel that they're 3 different things, and a lot of companies are treating them as 3 different things, but the best companies are really beginning to take to heart that these are all part of one larger movement. And it's actually a movement that started with the internet to make everything in business much more information focused. And the internet really gave consumers access to information they never had before. It started the erosion of corporate power in what I call the corporate-consumer relationship. And then in 2004, social certainly gave the consumer more access to information and each other than they ever had before, and that hurt corporations. It really made them change the way they think. Mobile came on the scene a few years later and further eroded that because now they had information everywhere they went on anything. That's where showrooming and those type of things really took off. And big data is really the end result of that, and maybe big data is the thing that starts to tip the scales back in the favor of corporations. So what I'm looking at is how those 3 things are tied together, how they've impacted companies over the last decade, and what companies need to do in order to be successful in this new, what I call the new social economy, and how big social mobile enterprises operate to be effective.
It's amazing how fast technology has moved business, marketing, everything into, it's moved fast. Mm-hmm. Talking about big data, I mean, big data is something more recently that people are like, okay, we got to collect this data, and then you get companies that are like, okay, we got it, now what do we do with it? So it was really interesting to read this book. Now, can you give us a few examples of what this actually means, tying these in together?
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned big data, for example, and there's a lot of buzz and hype around big and social and mobile. But the average company really doesn't know what it means to them. So I try to use a lot of very simple, very straightforward case studies and examples to say, what are the best companies actually doing to get tangible results? And that's a very important piece of the book, and certainly my own philosophy. These things are generating a lot of expense, but they're not so great at generating tangible results, getting a real ROI for that expense. More customers, higher value customers, more revenue, higher market baskets. Those type of things that the average business person or executive is really focused on. Friends, fans, followers, those things don't mean anything outside of the marketing department, but revenue and profit, they speak to everyone. So
absolutely.
The question is, how do you use big data in a way that actually allows you to grow more customers or higher value customers? And the average company can't figure that out. The average marketing person can't translate it. So through the book, I try to show how the best companies are actually doing that to produce tangible results. And so how do you take all this data? What are the right analysis that you should be running? How do you find out who your perfect customer is and how to go get more of them? How do you figure out that this one moment in time where somebody who was a loyal customer to a competitive brand is suddenly very open to switching brands. How do you know that through the data? And then how do you pull it in and not just give it to the marketing people, but give it to different experts throughout the organization who can act upon it, whether it's sales, customer service, operations, even people like R&D and engineers that are developing future products. So in my world, marketing is not just the center of the universe, which they kind of got turned into in 2015, but they're what I call is a conduit. They're using these new digital initiatives to understand and interact more effectively with consumers by connecting the right people in the organization to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that you talk about the big data, because it's kind of like I explain, it's like going to a library and checking out 15 books, and you're going home and saying, I have 15 books. Well, that's great. What did you get out of it? If you're buying them and not reading them, what's the sense? So I always ask my clients, what data are you collecting and why? If you can't give me a reason why you're collecting certain data, then why are you collecting it? It makes no sense. It's like growing a food that you're not going to eat or give away. It's just going to sit there and rot. So, it's very, very important to understand big data and how it works. Now, how does social and mobile come in here?
Well, again, it's much like big data. Social has this mindset of more friends, more followers, more fans is better. Mobile, more downloads is better. Data, more data, the more data, the better. And that's kind of the mentality of experts who appreciate those nuances. But again, more data for data's sake isn't valuable. Sometimes those experts forget that really all that you're doing is driving expense. The real question is, how does the mainstream company use that to generate revenue or hopefully more profit? Social can be those things, but most companies aren't doing that. Most people are using measures that are defined by experts to measure the performance of that expert or that initiative. How many new friends, how many new followers did we grow? Or, if we're more sophisticated, we say, what kind of engagement has that driven? What kind of sentiment has that driven? And that's not what I'm talking about. I believe that those type of things have become mainstream for most companies now. But what they can't do is take that 100,000 or 1 million fans or followers that they have on a social platform, add that to a sales report and say, okay, let's think of social as a new channel. How many of those 1 million are actually converted to customers? How many have purchased or been upsold by us? And what's the average revenue for a person who is a social follower or for one that's highly engaged? And then how do we take that behavior and make more people follow the same behavior or same pattern of behaviors to get better results? That's what I'm talking about, coming outside of the marketing department or digital marketing that owns social, technologists that own data and mobile, and connecting it out to other processes and people in the organization who can use it to drive real value. Getting away from this mindset that they can be run in isolated silos, right? It's about creating what I call an integrated enterprise or a big social mobile enterprise that's using these three digital initiatives to drive what is traditionally valuable, because that's where a lot of companies have gone wrong. They think they need to reinvent themselves, and there's nothing that will lead to failure more quickly than a desire to reinvent yourself. It's a really troubling mindset that's taken hold these days.
So we're talking about more than just measuring return on investment. We're actually talking about using the assets that you have to create more of a return and a future return from others. Yeah,
I think what I'm always trying to do is relate these new techniques and technologies back to the business in traditional terms. So what you see amongst the best companies, the companies that I show as case studies in the book and use as examples when I speak, is that they didn't change their value proposition. Their value proposition stayed the same. They didn't try to reinvent themselves as highly social, highly mobile, big data friendly. They took the other perspective. They said, look, social hasn't changed business. This is still about generating profit. We still deliver value based on X, Y, and Z. How do we use these new techniques and technologies, these digital initiatives, to reinforce those things and connect more effectively? And a really good example of that is Starbucks. And it's a great example because everyone knows them and loves the brand, or most people do. And they look at the most successful wallet application in the world, and they say, wow, this is a really great application. It's very engaged. It's almost always one of the top 10 downloaded applications on iTunes, month after month after month. And they failed to understand where it came from. Starbucks didn't set out to create a loyalty app or to create a mobile wallet or to dominate the mobile wallet space like they have. They started out by trying to create an app that made the in-store experience much more user-friendly, right? So the biggest challenge in Starbucks is getting people through the payment process. And the app was designed at its heart to make the payment instantaneous, right? So much more quicker than swiping a credit card. It's virtually instantaneous for the 20% of the Starbucks population that uses it to purchase. So they've taken the most time-consuming piece of the process in store and reduced it to nearly zero. And that bolsters up what is the Starbucks experience, right? Starbucks isn't just about coffee. It was about that third place, home, work, and Starbucks. And a part of that great experience is making sure that when you're in the store, you're not hung up waiting in line for people to pay. So it didn't start where people think it started. It started by reinforcing what was critical to the inherent value proposition of the organization. And that's the mindset that the best companies who are big social mobile enterprises have adopted.
Yeah, and you can see how those all work in together. Very familiar with the app. When you talk about 20% of people using the app, that's big. That's big numbers. I know the people, they go in, they order it before they get there or on their way there. They pay for it. They walk in, they grab the cup with their name on it, and they're out the door. I mean, they use this from data they've collected on what people have wanted from them and what would make their customer experience even more better. So you can see how they all intertwine and they circle back around to each other, and it's just been better and better for them. So what are some other examples, some other companies that have used this effectively?
Well, I think, it's interesting. As part of the book, I worked with one of my local dentists who owns a very small practice. I live in northern New Jersey, and what we talked about as I got to understand our business, it's interesting in the dental industry. Nobody likes dentists. They don't like going there. It's very painful, and it was really amazing when I started talking to her. The biggest problem for a dentist is that a vast majority of people don't come to the dentist twice per year for their insurance authorized cleaning. Right? You don't want to go. There's nothing driving you there. You're not seeing the dentist for them to remind you. So there's this inherent flaw in the business process of a dentist because they can't maximize revenue because they can't get people to come in for this unpleasant cleaning twice per year, which insurance will fund. So it's something like 60% of certain demographics walk around without proper teeth cleaning. It's when you sit in a meeting, think of that number and understand what's going on with people around you. So what she found out is that with the use of a very simple, not even a mobile app, a very simple module tacked onto her ERP, like an app on top of the ERP, she could send out via SMS text messages, which is the basic usage of mobile, right? It doesn't have to be all these fancy bells and whistle applications.
Correct.
She could trigger an SMS message at 6 months. It was about 3 weeks before 6 months to say, hey, your cleaning is due. Click on this link to call our office and schedule it. That's all that it said. She got over an 80% response to those SMS messages. Now,
that's unbelievable.
Right, it's mind-boggling. Think of what that did to her revenue. Right, her biggest business problem is getting people in for the second cleaning. She could get 80% of those people to schedule that second cleaning with a simple SMS message. And in addition, she expanded that for other things that are more difficult to get people in for, like necessary but very painful surgery. It's something that's hard to get people to come in for. But people respond to a text message. And it's the opposite of Starbucks. It's the simplest application of the same smartphone mobile technology, but the ROI on that is tremendously higher than the average app that you would find on iTunes. That's how you have to think. What's going on in my business problem? How do I need to interact with customers? And how can I use big data or social or mobile to understand and make more money? It doesn't have to be so complicated.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the text, because most people would see that problem and say, you know what, I'm just going to send out an email or call. Mm-hmm. You know, text is coming, it's coming to the forefront. It's been used in marketing forever, but text is the quickest contact to your customer, because to open an email, you have to click on the email tab. Mm-hmm. You know, to open an app, you have to click on the app. Text comes there immediately. So it's amazing that she chose that as the funnel to get to the clients. And yeah, it works. I mean, 80% is unbelievable, and those are all people who normally wouldn't have come in for those cleanings or come in as customers to spend money there. So that's truly a great conversion rate. Now, tell us what's going to happen. What's at stake with companies?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Okay, because everybody out there right now is going, yeah, you know, some people are like, yeah, I think I want to embrace it. Other people are going, no big deal. You know, what's going to happen to them if they don't start embracing this?
Well, every study shows that this is the direction of business, and at the same time, everyone just intuitively can see that consumers are becoming increasingly social savvy. So you have showrooming. Now you have reverse showrooming. You have all these things that consumers are doing to be smarter about getting deeper discounts. So for most companies, their social interactions have really devolved to delivering discounts via social platforms. I mean, if you set aside videos and Happy Holidays message and all those things, the things that are prompting action from consumers are really discounting or couponing, things like that. But that's not really what the best companies are doing. The best companies are learning how to influence behavior, decision-making, emotional states of consumers, and get them to do things that are in the company's best interest that they would not otherwise do. So in this type of work, which feels and sounds largely conceptual until I can give very specific examples like the dentist, it's easy for companies not to feel a call to action for things that are this broad and complex. But think of it in these terms. It only takes one company in your own industry to get this right, and automatically the way you're interacting with consumers overnight is an outdated way to go. They can steal any customer from you because they're appealing directly to what customers want. They want companies that understand them, understand their needs, and don't send them cat videos. They want companies that send them things that will make their lives easier, less expensive, or just plain more fun, that have to do with the expertise of the company. You know, the days where it made sense to build as large a following as possible are gone. Now it's about building a less dense, a more shallow but more dense community of people who truly are tied to what it is that you sell and provide service for. So one company that gets that right will have a first mover advantage that's going to be very hard for you to undo, because social consumers really look past price, functionality, features, things like that to understand what's going on in the company. It's much more like they're building a personal relationship. They're actually asking, is this a person I want to be friends with? Does this brand represent what I believe about life? And they're willing for the first time. The studies show that for the first time, social consumers are willing to put their money where their heart is or where their mouth is. You know, my generation, I'm in the 40s, I'm sad to say, we proved that we believe in being environmentally friendly, but we won't put our money there. Only when two things are of equal price will we lean towards more environmentally friendly products. Younger generations, they will put their money there. So that's how you have to think of it. There's a ticking time bomb because other companies are trying to figure this out in your industry.
Yeah, and by the way, you can send your cat videos to me because I'll still watch them. But you know, one study I read recently, and I looked for it, I can't find it right away, but I'll put it up on the podcast, on the blog post when we're done here. It talks about consumers who do shopping while in line at your store, and what percentage of them are actually shopping on their mobile phone, looking for maybe a better deal or a better value at other places while they're standing in line at your store, and the percentage was just astronomical. So the people are out there. They're ready to be pulled in and brought in. It's just a way of tapping into all three of these, and like you said, getting it right. The one that's going to get it right is the one that's going to take the market share.
Yeah, it is a complex problem, and everyone believes in this utopia state, a big social mobile enterprise, highly integrated. Everyone believes in that. The challenge has been, how do we actually get there? So how do you stop a consumer who's in line, maybe even at your store, from using that idle time where they're stuck in line, from surfing and seeing what they can get for the same price somewhere else and putting it down and walking away because they just found a $10 discount and they don't need this thing right now, and oh my God, next year Amazon will deliver it via drone anyway.
Yes.
So how, there's a real risk there, but they don't know how to stop it. And given the force and just how sophisticated Amazon is, there's a real paranoia amongst retailers that they can't compete. But that tide is changing. Retailers, physical retailers, brick and mortar stores, offer something that Amazon can't. There is a certain color that you love, and you just can't see that on the computer screen. There's a fit to a piece of clothing that you can't figure out from when you buy it online. And returning things is really annoying. Whether a drone comes to pick it up or not, it's still annoying. So it's not that physical retailers can't compete. It's just that they haven't done a good job competing. They need to understand that they have advantages that online retailers don't, and they need to reinforce those advantages via social, via mobile, and use data to understand whether or not the things that they're doing are actually resonating. And there's actual physical ways, whether it's smart antennas or geofencing, in-store video, in-store free Wi-Fi connections. There's real ways that companies are connecting and grabbing consumers at those times and offering them just information that they would not otherwise have to stop them from doing what you're talking about, from showrooming and going elsewhere. You can fight back. You just need to know how.
Absolutely. Now, David, I give all podcast guests here the final word, so you get the final minute to say anything you want about yourself, what you do, about the book. And I will mention to people here, the book explains things in really great detail. I would recommend it. I would recommend getting a copy, buying it, reading it. I don't promote anything unless I truly believe in it here. So it's one of the reasons I had you on, because I think it's very valuable, very important. It is the way the world is going, and I really enjoyed the read. So whenever you're ready, you get the final word.
Well, thank you. It's always good when I hear an expert say something like that or endorse it. So I appreciate it. Where people have come to understand or expect me to fit into the market is taking these complex things, breaking them down, and show them how they actually achieve that utopia state. And that's what I tried to do in the book. Because I really focus on putting methodology into practical application, I felt like I had to go a little bit further. So the book does break down the steps, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 core steps on how you get there. And each step of the way within those chapters, it gives you sample questions to say, go find this out about your own company. This will tell you how many of your people in your social community are also customers. If you don't know, this is how you marry them together. So it really is a step-by-step blueprint for how you would actually get there. And I really do try to reinforce that marketers adopt that same mindset. Make this actionable to the people inside of your business. You're actually selling these concepts to them. And to do that effectively, you've got to talk in business terms. Don't talk friends, fans, followers. Talk about number of customers, increased market basket, customer lifetime value, revenue, profit. If you can do that translation, you'll have a lot more success getting the support for some of these complex techniques that the folks in the business really don't understand. So that would be my appeal and final word of advice. And I do appreciate it, Mike. Thank you.
Hey, no problem. So who's your team?
Who's my team?
Yeah, from New Jersey. I'm wondering if you're upset that the Jets got kicked out or...
Well, I am sad to say that I grew up in southern New Jersey, just outside of Philadelphia. So
okay.
It has been
it's been a dark year. You've had some turbulent times in the last couple of years, but we'll see what's going to happen here. What's your thoughts on that?
I think there's always drama in Philly, and if you look back 15 years, it's amazing because Philadelphia's had one of the most winning overall records in football. And even in years where they have terrible records, they really understand the power of marketing, because in sports like this, drama equates to eyeballs and marketing and getting television time when your team is completely out of the picture. So the Eagles have absolutely mastered the art of mass marketing through drama.
Absolutely. I mean, they're one of the most talked about teams. I see this head coaching carousel starting again with all the firings, and it seems like, from now on, I think we don't fire or hire coaches. We just bring everybody into the league, and then each year we switch teams. It's like musical chairs. You coach the Bears this year, you're going to Philly next year, you're going to New England the following, and see how that works. But that's just my thoughts. So
it's really interesting, because if you look at it, Chip Kelly came in and really tried to revolutionize the NFL, and it's a good example of how it just doesn't work. If he had adopted a mindset of, how do you take what the NFL is, take the best parts of college, and help take one team and evolve to that next better approach to the NFL? He would have built upon the strengths and not destroyed the team at the same time. But he had this revolutionary mindset, which for the average company, for the average team, doesn't work. It's very destructive. And that's something I do talk about a lot in the book. And unfortunately for me as an Eagles fan, Chip Kelly is a living, breathing example of the destruction of a revolutionary mindset.
Yeah, and I like Chip. I think he's a great coach. It's just, what he did. I can give you an example of Brian Kelly, no relation, for Notre Dame, which I will admit is my favorite college team. Sorry about that. And, he came from Cincinnati, and he was running the same type of offense as Chip Kelly. And he came to Notre Dame and said, I'm going to run the same type of offense. But when he got in there, he realized, okay, where am I at? I'm at Notre Dame. Here's how the playing style is. Here's how I need to take the best of what I know and the best of what I want to do and integrate it into this program. So instead of reinventing the program, he was able to adopt a lot of things that he had from his current program, his current coaching style, and he turned a program around. Now, of course, we lost a bowl game a little bit ago, but still, it's amazing how you can transition into that. So,
yeah.
Now, for everybody out there listening, you can, again, go to Legalmorning.com, click on the podcast tab to get more information. You can also just search Big Social Mobile in Google and come up to Amazon.com or the site. Or you can email me and say, hey, what was that discussion you had about the big data and how to adapt it? And I'll gladly send you an email with all the information that you need. So I appreciate you being on today, Dave.
Thanks for having me. It's great talking with you.
Okay, excellent. And for those listening, until next time, this is Mike Wood from Legalmorning.com.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Impact Podcast. For a copy of the information from this podcast, please go to Legalmorning.com and click the podcast tab. Until next time.